UFC Fight Night, Song Yadong versus Chris Gutierrez in the main event. I'm going to be going over the full card, giving predictions, starting at the bottom, making my way to the top, as I always do. Starting with the opener of Rayanne Amanda and Talita Alencar. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this fight. It's a terrible fight. It shouldn't even be happening because both of these women aren't really UFC caliber, at least from what I've seen on tape. Rayanne Amanda is the pick though, because at least she's had way more experience, and she's only 28 years old versus Talita Alencar being 33. Um, I just think that the younger girl, way more experience, has a better striking. Talita's going to sell out for the takedowns. She is a grappler, so she's going to be just trying to get the fight to the mat by any means necessary. I think Amanda will be ready for that. I would imagine, she's going to be probably working on her takedown defense, because if she keeps the fight on the feet, she should have a pretty clear advantage, in my opinion. Um, Not much to go off of here, though. I'm just going to pick Ryan Amanda. Move along to a more interesting fight, which is Tatsuro Taira and Carlos Hernandez. I like Tatsuro Taira here. I like Taira to beat Carlos Hernandez. I actually think Carlos Hernandez is a solid fighter, 9-2 overall. I think the Alan Nascimento loss definitely plays into my prediction here. Tatsuro Taira is a similar type of grappler to Alan Nascimento. Now, I know Alan Nascimento is training out of Shoots Box with guys like Charles Oliveira, with that whole camp of like really elite talent. So he's getting good grappling looks, and that's kind of his game. His game is, trying to take people's backs or trying to, submit them. So Carlos Hernandez losing to him, I understand, it's a tough fight for him to take, but against Tyra, I just see this something similar happening. Hernandez is pretty good on the feet, but I just think Tatsuro Taira will be able to get him down. Tatsuro Taira utilizes a lot of good takedowns. It's not just like singles or doubles or whatever. Like, he uses trips. He uses he'll just find any way he can to get you to the ground. And once he's on top of you, he stays there. If he gets your back, you're probably going to lose the round, if not the fight. I think Tetsuro Taira can get this one done using his grappling, out grappling Hernandez, possibly finding a submission. I do think Hernandez will be definitely, improved on submission defense, so I could see this one going a little bit later. But overall, my pick is Tetsuro Taira, either late submission or decision. This is another one similar to the first fight on the card, where it's just like, what do you even say here? Stephanie Edgar versus Luana Santos. The first thing I want to mention is the weight miss from Luana Santos. She weighed in 3 pounds over the limit at 139. So she's going to have an advantage here. Not that she's bigger. Like, when I looked at the face off between the two, Edgar actually looked like a little bit bigger. But I just think Luana Santos, 23 years old, not sure why she missed weight by 3 pounds in this one, but against Stephanie Egger, I was less than impressed in her last. Not that I'm impressed by Luana Santos. I mean, Juliana Miller is the worst fighter, one of the worst fighters I've ever seen, and embarrassingly enough, I actually picked Juliana Miller to beat Santos just because I thought Santos had fought no level of competition, and she still hasn't. Juliana Miller's just even more awful than I even thought. So Miller's terrible. Santos hasn't fought in competition. Um, the reason I'm picking her, though, is because Stephanie Egger lost to Arena Alexieva by knee bar, and Arena Alexieva is also terrible. I just don't understand how this shouldn't even be a fight. This is a regional level fight on a UFC card. It's a waste of a spot. It's like if you want to take like a snack break or piss break, this is the fight to do it on. But yeah, Luana Santos probably should win. Younger, going to be improving quicker. Stephanie Egger, you know what she's going to try to do. In a lot of her fights, what she does try to do is, um, she wants to be in the clinch. She wants to take you down. She does have a good judo, she has a judo background, but she just, I don't know. I mean, I know she's fought some decent competition. She beat Aylin Perez, lost to Myra Bueno Silva, is fighting for the belt actually now. But overall, just nothing that Stephanie Egger's done has really impressed me. Similar to Luana Santos, but I just think, the Juliana Miller fight, the way she was throwing punches was, it wasn't really technical. It was just almost like a brawl almost. But I think if she takes the fight to Stephanie Egger, she could be, a little bit quicker with the hands. If she gets on top of Stephanie Egger, even if Stephanie Egger gets on top of her, Luana Santos is dangerous. She should probably be dangerous with her jiu-jitsu as well. So not sure why I'm spending so much time on this fight. I'll go with Santos, though. I guess you could call her the prospect in that one, but not really, to be honest. Steve Garcia versus Melquizael Costa. Finally, we get to an actual, a good fight that people are actually, you guys are going to want to watch this fight because it's going to be entertaining. Steve Garcia, Mel Costa. It is up at 155. There was an issue on the side of Steve Garcia. I believe he was hospitalized, if I'm not mistaken, or there's some like weight cutting issue. However, he is good to go. They rescheduled this fight. Now they're booked for this card. I do like Mel Costa. I picked him previously. I'm picking him still. I think Mel Costa is the better overall striker. I do think Steve Garcia has a good skill set. By good skill set, I feel like he's good at pressuring people and just putting that he's got that dog in him. He's going to fight, fight hard. Even if it gets dropped, he's going to keep coming back, get in your face and swing. The fight he had against Shailon Nerdenbecky got taken down early, but lit up the body of Nerdenbecky, dropped him with body shots, and it was actually kicked to the body, and then followed it up. Perfect shot right on the liver, and dropped Shailon Nerdenbecky and finished him. Fight before that was a finish against Chase Hooper. That was very easy. Dropped Chase Hooper multiple times, got right up in his face, laid the hands on him, and Chase Hooper wanted none of it. So another decent win there. But the problem I have with Steve Garcia is he walks into a lot of strikes. Even in the Shailon Nerdenbecky fight, Shailon rocked him in their fight. In the Machate fight, that was a year and a half ago, Machate knocked Steve Garcia out cold with a counter. It was when Steve Garcia was throwing big hooks, trying to come in the pocket. Machate, stepped back, clocked him with the right hand, and Garcia face planted on the canvas. The fight against Charlie Ontiveros, I know he beat Charlie Ontiveros, but he got dropped like 2 or 3 times in that fight, and that's against Charlie Ontiveros, who is not UFC caliber. And then he loses a decision to Luis Pena. I just think Malcasa is gonna survive this storm. I think if you can survive the early storm, weather the Steve Garcia, the machine that comes forward, I think Malcasa can touch him up here. I think his kicks are nasty, especially his body kicks. I think Malcasa is going to be working those in this fight. Trying not to get hit with any big shots that Steve Garcia throws. Maybe trying to return fire with some body kicks, slow down Garcia. I think that's a very good game plan to have for Mel Costa. I do think that could work for him. That could play into his advantage, as well as just I'm not really he's more of a kicker. Costa is. He throws a lot of kicks. He's decent with the hands too, though. I could see him knocking out Steve Garcia, catching him with a good shot. So the pick for me is going to be Melquizael Costa. Moving along to the next prelim, this is a theme on this card of just fights that I don't understand why they're happening. This is one I don't understand why it's happening. Hyung Sung Park versus Shannon Ross. Is there really anything I need to say about this fight? I mean, Shannon Ross is just, he's done. He's cooked. I don't know why he's even in the UFC first. Just looking at it, I'm like, he got knocked out in 20 seconds by Jesus Aguilar. Aguilar's not even a knockout puncher. He's not even a guy that, typically knocks people out. Jesus Aguilar wins, a lot of his fights by guillotine. He's a submission guy, a guy that likes to pull guillotine. That's his method of victory for a lot of his fights. And he puts Aguilar puts Shannon Ross out, puts him out cold, starches him in 20 seconds. And now he's coming back after 4 months from getting starched in 20 seconds to fight Hyung Sung Park, an 8-0 undefeated fighter who's 28 years old out of South Korea. This is a setup fight in the highest degree. we all know what's going to happen here. I'm not going to spend much more time on it, but you can look through Shannon Ross's record just to see how much he doesn't even deserve to be in the UFC. He's going to get knocked out here. If Hyun Park loses the fight, he should get cut. I think this is like, if this is anything like the Angel Jubilee fight versus Mike Breeden, where Shannon Ross can, maybe gets rocked, comes back and wins. But, I would say Hyun Park, if you lose, you get cut because this is the easiest fight on the entire roster. So Hyun Park should absolutely win in the first round if he's any prospect at all. Kenan Song versus Kevin Jousset is the next prelim. This is at 170. I like Kevin Jousset. I went into this thinking, maybe the plus money on Kenan Song wouldn't really be a bad idea. But then I look more into it and I'm like, Kenan Song doesn't have the volume that I would like to see. If Kenan Song had, more volume against a guy like Kevin Jousset and he was able to put more combinations together, I would say maybe Kenan Song would be worth, picking here to beat Kevin Jousset, especially as an underdog. But I just feel like Kevin Jousset, he's a little bit younger, 30 years old. Kenan Song, 33. I know I mentioned age a lot. This one, it doesn't really matter that much. They're only like a few years apart, but still, the guy that's, I believe, going to make the improvements is Kevin Jousset. He's probably going to utilize a lot of leg kicks against Kenan Song. Song can utilize some of his own, but I just don't think Song has the volume to be able to. I think he's going to look for one big shot to knock Kevin Jousset out. Jousset kind of does stand straight up in the air with his hands down sometimes, and he is, he can be countered with like big, right hands, which Kenan Song can hit him with. Um, so it is a slight worry. I'll say that it's a slight worry if Kenan Song can, hit him with clean shots on the chin. But the thing with Jousset, I know his competition has been pretty bad, but if you look at Kenan Song, um, the Ian Gary fight, sure, he dropped Ian Gary, nearly had him finished. Um, but outside of that, I know he almost had him finished, so that's what people are going to look at. But Ian Gary was, beating him during that fight. He was beating him the whole fight, um, and he just got caught. He got caught by Song, he does have a lot of power, but Song's been knocked out himself. He's been knocked out, obviously finished by Ian Gary. The Max Griffin fight was a bad look. Kevin Jousset, like, why can't he do what Max Griffin did in their fight? You know what I mean? Um, Looking back through the Kenan Song fights was kind of why I realized that maybe he isn't, the pick I thought he would be. So I'm gonna go with Kevin Doucette, also training at a City Kickboxing. I know the same thing's been brought up like multiple times this week, but if you look through the record of Kenan Song, loses to Israel Adesanya, City Kickboxing, loses to Brad Riddell, City Kickboxing, and now he's fighting Kevin Doucette. So I know there's a few people that have mentioned that, sort of City Kickboxing kind of knows Kenan Song's style by now. If you want to buy into that, you can. For me, it's just a matter of, I think Jousset will have the higher output. I think he'll land a lot of leg kicks on Song, and I think Song will look for those big, one punch, like one hitter quitter type of shots where he wants to knock out Jousset. But if those big shots don't land, or even if Jousset takes him and doesn't get, knocked out, I think he should win this fight by a decision. So the pick is Kevin Jousset for me. Now we're moving on to the main card. First fight of the main card is Andre Muniz and Jun Young Park, the Iron Turtle. Now I'm going to say this. Some people are on Andre Muniz, and after the Paul Craig fight, I know it's Paul Craig and he has got, good jiu-jitsu and everything, but the Paul Craig fight was just bad in my opinion. And would Paul Craig do the same thing to Jun Young Park? Maybe, but I'm picking Jun Young Park. I'm picking Jun Young Park. Listen, I know there's, if you look at their records, I see why people are picking Andre Muniz. Paul Craig, he lost to Paul Craig and Brendan Allen, who are like pretty good competition. I mean, Brendan Allen's a top 10 guy now, and Paul Craig always has the grappling option to hang with anybody. Although someone with a black belt someone that's as high level of black belt as Andre Muniz should not be dominated like that in the grappling by Paul Craig. He just shouldn't. I mean, Paul Craig just out grappled him easily. He just it was a little bit of Muniz just quitting. I think Muniz does get tired. I think if he doesn't, submit Jun Young Park early, let's say he takes him, even if he takes him down and controls him in the first round, Park's gonna come out with more cardio, probably much better cardio than Muniz in the second and the third round. Park's not a 1 round fighter. He fights better as the rounds go on. He picks up the pace and the volume, and his cardio and everything picks up as the fight progresses. And that's probably one of the biggest weapons that Park has is his excellent cardio. And we've seen Muniz break before. Um, sure, he's also beaten a few guys, but I think, if you look through I know Jun Young Park had a split win over Eric Anders, but I just think that, styles make fights. Muniz is going to have to, try to wrestle here and get Park down to the ground and control him. I think even if he takes him down in round one, can't finish him. I think, Park probably will be a huge underdog on the live bet, on the live line. He'll probably be like a 2-1 underdog if Muniz dominates the first round. And I could see Park taking over in the second or the third round and, finding a finish here over Andre Muniz or, just beating him, as the fight progresses. So I'm going to, trust the cardio of Jun Young Park here. You know what they always say about cardio, don't bet against cardio. So um, one guy that gasses out and has quit before versus a guy that we know isn't going to give up and has great cardio, I'll take Park. Nasrat Haqparast and Jamie Malarkey is our next one. I'm picking Nasrat Haqparast. If you look through the record of Nasrat, he's 15-5. He's 28 years old. Malarkey's 29 years old. So these guys are both, coming into their prime. But I think the difference with these two are, Nasrat Haqparast, he lost his first fight in the UFC against Marcin Held back in 2017. Since then, his losses have been against, in the UFC, he got knocked out by Drew Dober in 2020. That was almost 4 years ago now. And then he lost a decision to both Dan Hooker and Bobby Green. And I know Bobby Green just got knocked out and everything, but Bobby Green is a very good boxer. He still could beat a lot of guys in the division. Bobby Green can. So, and then obviously Dan Hooker's, very good fighter. So no shame in losing to those guys at all. Outside of that, Lanny Quinones fight, very competitive fight. I picked Nasrat. He got the job done. Didn't really look like I think it was like a minus 300 or 400. He didn't look like a minus 400, but definitely, got the job done, 29-28. Close fight, competitive fight, but he did what he had to do. And, he's done that for the most part. He's done his job in most of his UFC fights. He's only getting beat by the upper echelon, the top 15 type of competition are the only guys that are beating him. He's almost like I don't want to say like a gatekeeper to the top 15, but, if you look at it, Bobby Green, Dan Hooker, Drew Dober before that. Now you look at Jamie Malarkey. For one, obviously I think this will be a striking fight. Nasrat Haqparast, I do think, is the faster boxer. And when you look at a guy like Malarkey, one, he is chinny. He's 17-6. The guy's been knocked out 4 times. He's chinny. Muhammad Naimov knocked him out. Not the best look there at all. The second round knockout. That was a short notice. Naimov too. Just not good. Jalen Turner, he's, he knocks a lot of people out. No shame there. But I just think that, if you land a good shot on Jamie Malarkey, you can hurt him. You can put him away. So there is always the chin issue of Malarkey. There's also the issue of, if you just look in general at his strength of schedule in comparison to Nasrat, beats John McDessie. John McDessie at this point was 38 years old, and a lot of people thought McDessie won that fight as a plus 220 underdog. A lot of people were sweating their Jamie Malarkey bets if they had him on, against the John McDessie there. But Francisco Prado. It was Francisco Prado's first fight in the UFC. He was 20 years old. Jamie Markey just took him down, out grappling him for 3 rounds. I don't see Malarkey out grappling Nasrat. I just don't see it happening. Um, the Michael Johnson fight, he arguably lost to Michael Johnson. So he arguably lost to McDessie and arguably lost to Michael Johnson. And then he beats a 20-year-old Prado, who is a very good striker, but he took him down. I don't see him taking down Nasrat. And then he loses to Muhammad Naimov, who was on short notice. Just, the last few fights of Malarkey just haven't been impressive to me. I think Nasrat Haqparast is the better prospect. I think he's just, even his coaching is better. I do believe Faraz Sahabi will be in his corner, and the guys over there at TriStar Gym, if I'm not mistaken. And if that's the case, then that adds a layer on top of it for me wanting to pick Nasrat. But yeah, definitely Nasrat, I believe, is a side in that one. Moving along to the featured fight now. Featured fight is a short notice replacement of Tim Elliott versus Sumaderji. Sumaderji was actually supposed to fight Alan Nascimento. He was supposed to fight Alan Nascimento. Nascimento had to pull out. In steps Tim Elliott on under a week's notice. And this is now at 135. They moved this up to bantamweight. So at the face-offs, I wanted to see how they sized up against each other. The thing I noticed was Sumaderji is actually bigger than Tim Elliott. Sumaderji is a lot taller than Tim Elliott. Not bigger in terms of he's not like Sumaderji is he's very skinny, but he is much taller than Tim Elliott. I feel like on the feet, Sumaderji should beat up Tim Elliott. Elliott's getting older. I know this is up 10 pounds, so he's not cutting as much weight on short notice. But 135, you're still cutting a little bit of weight on a few days' notice against Sumaderji, who's been training out of Team Alpha Male with Sang Yadong. Training with Sang Yadong, training with those wrestlers at Team Alpha Male will definitely get you, ready for a guy like Tim Elliott. I just feel like this is good. Everything that Sumaderji has been doing has been, benefiting him. The training with Sang Yadong, getting the wrestling looks to help him out because his grappling is not very great. I know he's, been submitted 4 times, so there's definitely a worry there. There's definitely a world where Tim Elliott goes out there and, on short notice can still find the takedowns and, dominate in the grappling. But I'm willing to take the chance. I'm willing to take the chance that the younger 27-year-old Sumaderji, who's been, frankly, he's been, putting in a lot of work, as we can tell over the last year and a half, just by the guys he's been training with, Sang Yadong, he's in the main event. I'll talk about him in a little bit, but that guy, you could tell he's improving so fast. Sang Yadong's been getting really, really good. And that effect will definitely, in my opinion, wear off on Sumaderji. Tim Elliott, I just really don't like that. I think he might just be taking this fight for the check. It's short notice. He's probably thinking, he doesn't have that many fights left in the UFC. He's about to be 37. He's probably thinking, let me get a few more fight checks in. I think if Sumaderji can, stuff a few takedowns, even if the rounds go on, Elliott gets a little bit tired, starts to slow down. Sure, Sumaderji might slow down a little bit too, but I just think the striking is, I think Tim Elliott, he is awkward, but I just think Sumaderji can get this one done. So picking Sumaderji in the featured fight. Now let's move to the co-main, which is Anthony Lionheart Smith versus Khalil Roundtree. You know what? This is gonna be my the pick that everyone's gonna disagree with. 78% of people are picking Khalil Roundtree. You know what? I'm willing to look stupid because I know if Anthony Smith gets knocked out or if he just gets embarrassed, run over, then it's going to look terrible. But I got to go with Anthony Smith here. Here's the reason I have to go with Smith. Smith is not losing to bad competition. Not to say Roundtree's bad, but Smith is not losing to guys that are, not in the top 5 or at least the top 10. Johnny Walker, he's fighting Magomed Ankalaev. both guys that beat him are fighting each other for possibly a number one, contenders fight type of fight they're having. And this Johnny Walker Magomed Ankalaev, that's the first main event of 2024. So I don't think losing to Johnny Walker, 3 round striking fight. Um, I don't think he's going to want to. I'll get into Killer Roundtree in a little bit, but lost to Johnny Walker, lost to Magomed Ankalaev, right? Lost also to Alexander Rakic and Glover Teixeira, John Jones, Thiago Santos. So you look through his losses, right? He's only losing to the best guys in the world: Glover Teixeira, John Jones, Rakic, and then recently Magomed Ankalaev and Johnny Walker. These are all guys that are like circling in and out of like the top 5. Some of them are former champions: Glover Teixeira, John Jones. So these guys are champions. Some of them that he's losing to. He's fought the best of the best. The Ryan Spann fight, sure, you could say what you want about Ryan Spann. Got clipped a few times in that fight, got hurt a little bit in that fight, but beat Ryan Spann, beat Spann over 3 rounds. It was a competitive fight, but people thought he was completely washed, and he might be a little bit slowed down compared to what he was, but that was a pretty good win over Ryan Spann. A very competitive fight, but Spann is a very dangerous guy. So good win there. For Roundtree, I just look through his fights. Chris Daukaus, okay, he beats Chris Daukaus. Chris Daukaus was a heavyweight that moved down to light heavyweight. It was his first light heavyweight fight in I don't know how long. So he wasn't used to that weight cut. Wasn't used to fighting at light heavyweight against faster guys. Roundtree knocks him out. Daukaus had already been knocked out 3 times before that. Let's continue. Dustin Jacoby. Dustin Jacoby. A lot of people thought that Dustin won. A lot of people thought that that was a robbery and that Dustin should have been the rightful winner of that fight. Fight before that, Carl Roberson. Not that good of a fighter. 9-4 Carl Roberson is not Anthony Smith. And then he beats Modestas Bukauskas 2 years ago. Side kick to the knee. And that side kick to the knee that he threw on, it was nasty. I think Modestas Bukauskas had to get surgery. Like his knee was torn apart. It was just not good to watch. Really sucked to see for him. Good to see that Modestas is back in the UFC, although he just got knocked out in his last fight. But regardless, talking about this fight, Roundtree, I know he's been looking good lately. I know he's got an explosive striking style. I know people are going to say the leg kicks, the power, you could say he's got all that stuff, but at the end of the day, I mean, I'm going to pick the guy that's way more experienced. The guy that's way more experienced, not that much older. He's a year and a half older. It's not like, Anthony Smith is like 45 years old. He's 35 compared to 33, about to be 34-year-old Roundtree. So Roundtree is almost the same age as Smith. They're not that far apart in age. It's not like, if you're saying Smith is slowing down a ton, sure, he might be slowing down a ton because he's been fighting the best of the best. And Khalil Roundtree is not the best of the best. So I just don't understand the line here. I think it's a little bit disrespectful to Anthony Smith. I just don't. I know it's also a short notice fight. I believe slightly short notice for Smith, but I just come on. You're given plus 165. I mean, the only way Roundtree looks minus 200 is if he goes in there and just starches Anthony Smith. But if Anthony Smith gets him to the ground, imagine if Anthony Smith gets on top of him, or if this fight does hit the mat. Anthony Smith on the mat is going to be way better than Khalil Roundtree. The levels difference on the mat is probably going to be even bigger than the levels difference. Not that I think Roundtree probably is more explosive at this point and, hits harder and everything. But, when we're talking about levels, I think the grappling levels are different than the striking level. So I've been thinking about this during the week. Something smells a little bit fishy about Khalil Roundtree being a minus 200 against a guy like Anthony Smith, who's, always down for a scrap against the highest level of competition. So I'm just going to take Anthony Smith and hope he can, get one done again. The main event of the evening to finish off the card. This hasn't, it's not the best card, but next week is going to be an even better breakdown. I'm going to be even more excited. Leon Edwards, Colby Covington, Roy Ball and Pantoja, Ian Gary, Cody Garbrandt, Paddy Pimblett, Tony Ferguson, Vicente Luque, obviously fighting Ian Gary. A ton of great fights. So, but for today's or tomorrow's main event, Chris Gutierrez, Song Yadong. I'm going to be going with Song Yadong to beat Chris Gutierrez. I think Song Yadong is better everywhere. I don't think Gutierrez's style is going to be able to work on a guy like Song Yadong. The reason being is because what Gutierrez is going to want to do is move a lot. In all of his fights, the last fight, the fight against Pedro Munoz was the one that kind of made me think, okay, if this guy gets cracked by Song Yadong once, if Song Yadong hits him with a good, clean shot, he's probably not going to want to get hit again. Not that he would want to get hit again, obviously, but he's probably going to, not engage. That's what happened in the Munoz fight. Gutierrez, he got clipped once, got dropped, and then he didn't engage the rest of the fight. He didn't engage the striking. He was just on the back foot, constantly, trying not to get hit. He looked scared. He looked scared to get hit. And if you're scared to get hit against a guy like Song Yadong, he's probably going to hurt you pretty badly. I do expect a finish here for Song Yadong. 26 years old. I think Song Yadong is, he's definitely the future. Really, really young, even younger than O'Malley. Like the guys, you know, I think he wins this fight. I think he's got the wrestling advantage. I think his striking is very good. More power, definitely more power. Better boxing. I think Gutierrez does have, an ability to chop the legs down. But I feel like if his whole game plan is chop the legs, move around, chop the legs, move around, occasionally throw in a spinning back fist or a, flying knee or something to keep Song Yadong guessing. I think if that's his game plan, it's just not going to work. I think Song's going to know that he's going to want to stay on the outside, kick his legs out. I think Song's going to know what he's going to want to do. And I think not only can Song have success on the feet, I think if Song wanted to, he probably could get Gutierrez down. And he could have success in the grappling against Gutierrez. The levels of competition is the last thing I'll mention on this fight. Song Yadong has been fighting very, very elite competition. His last 5 have been against Casey Kenny. Casey Kenny is an incredible. I know Casey Kenny hasn't fought since this fight, but Casey Kenny was a really good prospect coming up. Beat Julio Arce, beat Marlon Moraes. I know Moraes was past his prime a little bit. Loses a competitive fight to Corey Sandhagen. Corey Sandhagen has looked really, really good in the division as well. And the fact that that fight was as competitive as it was, I had Corey winning it going into the 5th round. And even if Song Yadong would have won the 5th round, it might have went to Corey still. I'm not really sure how the judges were scoring. But that fight was, it was a good fight. It was a very competitive fight, very good fight. And then after that, Song Yadong goes out there, beats Ricky Simone. So, yeah, I think he's got all the skills to get it done. Song Yadong fought the better competition. Chris Gutierrez, Altang Haley, he's solid, but Frank Yeager was like 40 when he knocked him out, a little bit past his prime. That was his retirement fight. Lost to Pedro Munoz. The Becquerel Dana fight. Becquerel Dana, that's not the most impressive win. Felipe Colares by split. Yeah, I'm going to be going with Song Yadong to get it done in the main event. Also has the 5-round experience that Gutierrez hasn't had in the UFC. So those are my picks for the fight night. This was supposed to be in Shanghai. They moved it to Vegas. Kind of unfortunate because I feel like with the crowd, it probably would have been a little bit better of an event. All the canceled fights would have been happening if some of the guys didn't have visa issues or, the guys could fight in their home country. But other than that, thank you guys very much for watching. Can't wait for next week's breakdown. Next week's breakdown will be even more in detail than this week. Probably a lot longer than this week as well. But I will see you guys in the next one.